So imagine this. What actually happens when the absolute, internationally agreed upon rules of the sea are just tossed aside? Tossed aside for a casual, improvised whisper over a VHF radio. Imagine a massive ship crossing in the dead of night, a situation that really should be resolved with simple, totally legal actions, but instead, it turns into a fatal guessing game. The results, as history shows us, are absolutely catastrophic. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're literally stepping onto the bridge for a really forensic breakdown of a fatal maritime disaster. We're looking at the March 2007 collision in the East China Sea between two huge ships, the MV Hui Rong and the MV Peng. Think of this as a step-by-step investigation into a tragedy that wasn't caused by a massive hurricane or a rogue wave, but by pure procedural negligence, a fear of waking the captain, and the frankly deadly misuse of a radio. Let's dive right into the fox here. Our doomed vessel is the Hong Kong-registered MV Hui Rong. She's a massive 164-meter ship, completely fully laden with steel, chemicals, and coke, and she's navigating through the notoriously congested waters of the Zhoushan Archipelago. Now, it was late at night, but the conditions? Pretty much ideal. We're talking a moderate breeze and a really solid 7 nautical miles of visibility. So no blinding fog hiding the danger here. The threat was right there in plain sight. But as you'll see, the real hazard was actually standing right there on the bridge itself. Let's walk through this ticking clock timeline because it brilliantly illustrates how a perfectly clear night just rapidly deteriorated into a deadly close-quarters situation. All right, at 22:15, a green sidelight is spotted just 2 miles away. Then, at 22:20, the master of the Hui Rong finishes his night orders and leaves the bridge, leaving his junior third officer in charge. Fast forward to 22:30. The vessels are converging fast and that fatal VHF radio contact is initiated. 5 minutes later, at 22:35, a totally disastrous improvised home order is given, and then, just 10 minutes after that, at 22:45, the devastating collision actually occurs. Now, there is a stark, absolute contrast between what the law required and what was actually happening out there in the dark. See, the international regulations for preventing collisions at sea, or COLREGS for short, those are the absolute law of the ocean. Under Rules 15 and 16, the Peng had the Hui Rong on her starboard side. That means she was the giveaway vessel. Her legal duty? Take early, substantial action to keep well clear, period. The Hui Rong, on the other hand, was the stand-on vessel. Under Rule 17, her strict obligation was to maintain her course and speed. It was a classic crossing situation. Simple, clear, totally unambiguous. But here, right here, is where the catastrophe truly begins. Instead of just following those rules, the third officers on both ships decided to negotiate over VHF Channel 16. The Peng Yaman's officer actually suggests the Hui Rong alter her course to port, promising he'd pass clear of her stern. And incredibly, the Hui Rong's third officer agrees. He orders the helm 10 degrees to port, and a bit later, hard to port. Guys, this was a direct, fatal violation of Rule 17. The rule explicitly prohibits a stand-on vessel from altering course to port for a vessel on her own port side. But instead of trusting the law, they trusted a blind, improvised radio chat. It was a deadly coordination error, and it doomed them both. So you've got to wonder, why did they do it? Why would two highly trained officers negotiate this deadly, non-standard maneuver while closing in on each other at nearly 24 knots combined? Well, it really comes down to a deeply human factor that honestly a lot of us can understand. It was the immense, unspoken psychological pressure not to wake the boss. Both of these junior officers instinctively chose to quietly handle this developing 2 nautical mile threat entirely on their own authority, rather than just apply standard operating procedure and call their superiors. As these two absolute behemoths converged, the geometry of their improvised maneuver just entirely collapsed. The Hui Rong was now steering hard port directly into the path of the Peng. And at that moment, the Hui Rong's third officer keys his radio one last time. He says, "I can no longer take action. Please alter course to starboard." He waited for a response, but there was only silence. Whether it was pure panic, a radio failure, or just an inability to act, the Peng offered zero reply. Sometime between 22:45 and 22:50, the Peng bow violently struck the starboard side of the Hui Rong at a near perpendicular 80-degree angle. The impact was absolutely devastating. The Hui Rong sank in just 15 to 20 minutes, settling all the way to the floor of the East China Sea. Out of her 29 crew members, 12 were miraculously rescued, but 17 men lost their lives that night, either confirmed dead or forever missing. And tragically, among those 17 was the Hui Rong's own third officer, the exact man who made that fatal decision to turn to port. Naturally, the aftermath sparked parallel, intense investigations by both the Chinese Maritime Safety Administration and the Hong Kong Marine Department. The official Hong Kong MSIN report formally confirmed the whole disastrous sequence. It highlighted the failure of the giveaway vessel to act early and, of course, the fatal mistake of the stand-on vessel taking advice via a VHF radio to alter course to port. When you look at the official lessons learned, they point to a profound procedural failure. Both third officers completely failed to notify their masters before taking avoiding action. You see, this wasn't just a simple navigational error, it was a fundamental breakdown of STCW watchkeeping codes. The rules mandate that the officer of the watch must notify the master immediately if traffic conditions cause any concern. The training is there, the rules are absolutely there, but was missing that night was the discipline to actually use them.
Now, following the sinking, the story actually shifts. We go from the dark, freezing waters of the East China Sea to the bright lights of the Hong Kong High Court. The grieving cargo owners, who, by the way, lost a massive, highly valuable shipment of steel and chemicals when the Hui Rong went down, they filed multi-million-dollar lawsuits against the owners of the Peng right there in Hong Kong, and they did it by literally arresting a sister ship to secure their claim. This sparked an incredibly fierce legal and jurisdictional battle.
The owners of the Peng didn't just back down, though. They fought back, using a really complex legal doctrine called forum nonconvenience. Essentially, this is a legal argument where a defendant asks a court to just dismiss a case, claiming that another jurisdiction is clearly more appropriate for the trial. So the ship owners argued that, hey, because the collision happened in Chinese waters, it involved Chinese crews, and they'd actually already set up a limitation fund over in Ningbo, China, the Hong Kong court should drop the case. They wanted to force the cargo owners to sue in mainland China instead. But Justice Reyes of the Hong Kong High Court was not having it. He systematically dismantled their arguments. He ruled that in a complex international admiralty context, where a ship happens to be registered actually carries very little weight. Plus, he pointed out that the primary witness, the surviving third officer who lived in Shandong, would find it just as inconvenient to travel to Ningbo as he would to Hong Kong. And finally, the investigative evidence was being shared between the authorities anyway, so he absolutely refused to stay the case. This sent a really clear message to the whole maritime industry. Simply setting up a parallel limitation fund in China does not automatically force a valid multi-million-dollar cargo claim out of Hong Kong. The whole tragedy of the Hui Rong and Peng remains just a haunting case study, both in maritime law and, honestly, in human psychology. It forces us to ask a tough question. When disaster looms in the dark and that pressure starts mounting, will future officers rely on the strict protective rules of the sea? Or will the instinct to quietly improvise, ending in the deadly silence of the radio, claim more lives? It's a question every single navigator has to answer before they ever take the watch. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.